Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another live session at the Reactor. Before we get into the session, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We're all here to learn, so please be respectful, please be kind, ask a lot of good questions. The chat will be open throughout, and we do have moderators moderating the chat, so this is your time, so please do ask a lot of good questions. We have a very exciting episode talking all about Microsoft Ignite data and AI deep dive. And with that, I'm now going to hand over to Paul and Adir, who are going to give you the best of Ignite.
Hello and welcome. My name is Paul Veck. I work in the UK partner team. My focus is to work with UK-based software companies to help them build and go to market with Microsoft. So really pleased to be here today to talk about the next frontier, how AI agents are shaping the future of startups and also digital natives. So I'll hand you over to my learning colleague, Adir in a little bit. But first, what I'm going to do is talk about the programs and initiatives we have here in the UK to help you build and then go to market. And that essentially is a journey we look to take with software companies. The first bit is building solutions in Microsoft Cloud. Once we've got a solution in Microsoft Cloud, or clouds, I should say, how can we then help amplify that via our go-to-market journeys, which may even include co-selling with our sales forces and also partners. To also help UK-based software companies build and go to market, we've just launched the Gen AI Lab. I literally launched today. I'll have a link at the end how you can register for this, and I'll talk you through some of the elements which are included within this today, but look out for that. Please register for that session, or sessions I should say, and there's a program there to help you build and also then go to market. So from a build perspective, we have lots of great programs and initiatives. This is an example of that. So it's called Azuer Innovate. It's basically partner-led funding to help software companies build AI solutions. You apply for funding via partners. Partners are then engaged with you to help you build AI solutions. You can see some of the use cases they build with there in terms of Azure AI, huge focus for Microsoft, ML services, if you're a data-driven software company, and various other ones as well. Once you've built your AI solution in Microsoft Cloud, we then have a comprehensive, I should say, go-to-market journey for you to work within. The first stage in that go-to-market journey is to get your solution transactable in Microsoft Marketplace. That is where we're driving all of our enterprise and mid-market customers to come and buy partner solutions. The second stage in that go-to-market journey then is partners. So we have 90,000 cloud solution provider partners. They can help you sell your solution to their own customer base as well. It's a powerful element of that go-to-market journey. So you're not just scaling through Microsoft and our marketplaces, you're also scaling through our partners as well. The last stage in the go-to-market journey then is co-sell. So once you've hit $100,000 worth of Azure consumption in your agreement, or $100,000 worth of sales on marketplace, you then become IP co-sell ready. And what that means is two things. Firstly, it means that Microsoft customers with Azure commit agreements can purchase your solution off marketplace and decrement the full value of that against their pre-committed Azure budget. And there's hundreds of billions of dollars worth of pre-committed Azure budget for you to tap into. Or secondly, at that point, Microsoft salespeople become incentivized to work with you as well. It's incredibly powerful. So like I said, we just launched Gen AI Lab. You can sign up for that today. It's at aka.ms/UK Gen AI Lab. It's on the first kickoff session is at 10 a.m. on the 29th of January. And now I'm pleased to hand you over to Adir to take you through the rest of the presentation. Many thanks.
Cool, like assistants are now quite the last, I would say, innovative stuff. Now we already have new things to All right, thanks, Paul. My name's Adir. I'm the EMEA Tech Lead for Digital Native Startups and Unicorns at Microsoft. This is my handle if you want to connect, linkedin.com/in/Adir. Happy to continue that engagement. I know that, doing this virtually, even though I'm currently right now in the UK, is a little hard. So if you want to continue to engage, feel free to reach out. We have a packed agenda for you today, talking about the next frontier and trying to ask a fundamental question for startups and digital natives, which I hear from pretty much everyone in the ecosystem. How would AI agents shape the future of what we do? Specifically, if we're working on a SaaS environment, we're offering platform and software for our customers, what do we see that sort of disruption will do to our customers, our product, our R&D, our engineering, and our strategy? So we have a lot. Brace yourself. Let's start by actually looking at the larger road. So we start off with understanding what would be the role for artificial general intelligence, what we call AGI. We're still not there. We're not even halfway through, but we already see a lot of progression. And actually, if we look at the scaling laws, up until 2010, we were at 1.4x multiple for a year. But ever since then, and you probably feel this as well, it's 4.2x a year. Things that we thought were super cool and innovative and interesting just 6 months ago are now, I wouldn't say obsolete, but they're obviously not as hyped as they were. And then the innovation, the pace of innovation, the pace of opportunity is amazing. So that road for AGI, we're still trying to build that plane, but we're also flying it at the same time, which is a little challenging, specifically for startups and digital natives. But as disruptors, I think that's also a great opportunity for us to understand that that pace of change is not going anywhere. Um, so if we look at how that all started, Microsoft, we built the first supercomputer in the cloud. It's still to May 2024, still on the top 500 supercomputers and the number one, which is available on the cloud. And that has been used with a collaboration of Microsoft and OpenAI in November 2022 to do the first step of that AGI, which is chatbots. So you can see it here, pretty cool, trained a lot of content, and then you get to see the result. I think what was the mind-blowing minute of ChatGPT was when everybody started playing it, but then there's another thing that you need to take into account, which is that this is not impressive at all. Right now, there's a lot of small language models, probably can run even on your smartphone, that can produce even better results than what we've seen in November 2022. So just 2 years into this, and something that was mind-blowing when it was out, like a chatbot, is now, can run pretty much everywhere, and it's quite consistent with traditional innovation. That was built around a language model. If we look at really what a language model allowed a lot of startups to build, is to build a universal interface, which means we can now engage with it as we would engage to a different person. We just need to ask it what we want. We can use plain language, English, or any of the other. And instead of working through an interface that was more computer generated, which has, radio buttons and combo boxes and those stuff, you can just engage directly. You can just say exactly what you want, and that would understand you. So we've passed that language barrier. It was huge in November 2022 to understand there's a language model that can actually take a human and a computer and make sure that they can understand one another. And then in March 2023, I think with the Chat GPT and GPT-4, we actually did the second phase of it. So we're not just in chatbot mode now. We're actually trying to deliver co-pilots, which means how do we take our IP, our internal knowledge as well, and bake it into that chatbot experience. So it's not just going to be a question and answer, but something that is very context aware. So that was when Copilot started. And you can see here it's already multi-model. It can take also pictures. It can take context. It can read a lot of your existing databases with practices like RAG, for example. So now instead of just being a model, it became more of a Copilot. So it's more of a framework for understanding what a human wants to do and convey what the application can do in return. And that's in parallel. What you've seen is that same supercomputer we used to build, to train GPT, we now have 30x of those. So the scale is not just around where GPT is headed, it's also in the scale of magnitude of the amount of supercomputers that are now used to train. And that maybe goes to the first slide that I shared, why this is happening so fast. It happened so fast because something that was groundbreaking just 2 years ago, now we have 30 of it. and we'll probably see even more in the near future. So if you look at the amount of language and AI models that we have on Azure, we now have more than 1,800 frontier and open source AI models. So ever since we've kind of looked at that first initial chatbot experience, we now have so many options that could be also from a task perspective or an industry perspective. So there's a lot of choices to build your Copilot with a lot of different models there out there. So we've moved from the chatbot experience to the Copilot experience, and that's something that now helps us take both the universal interface, but also use memory, use context, use data, use choice around the models and what they can do best to try and build an assistant, something that can use that universal interface that you've seen on a chatbot, but also deliver your part of the application. And that was when a lot of the balls dropped for digital natives and startups, because up until then, it was just a cool exploratory project of a chatbot. But now I can actually use it with my memory, with my context, with my IP to deliver something differentiated. So only my Copilot can answer those questions and not a traditional just a chatbot, because I provide the memory, the context, the data, the personalization, and the actual actions to be taken to give it some in specific IP related content. You can see here some of the examples. So for example, the DAO. I like this chatbot. This Copilot. It's quite cool. So you can see it here. We're now using a data which is specifically designed in terms of what the DAO is doing. So I want to show the freight opportunities. It doesn't just do the chatbot experience. It actually goes to the data, captures it, and delivers it. So we have the universal interface here, but we also have the context, the memory, and we've managed to make it, instead of just a chatbot, a true live assistant. So this is the road for general intelligence. And what I think happened, we're going to talk a lot about this because this is a key thing that happened that dramatically changed where we're trying to invest even on those AI announcements, is GPT-o1. GPT-o1 is not a language model, it's a reasoning model. And this is a big difference, because if a language model only took the understanding of the language and then we introduced some data and context and everything to make it a copilot, inherently didn't understand what he wants to do. It understood language. It had to have a reasoning or a chain of thought kind of experience. With GPT-o1 and o1 Mini, both available in preview on Azure, we now have not just a language model, but also reasoning models as well. Let's see some examples of where a reasoning model will probably act better than a language model. So if we're looking at this, Kate's mother has 5 daughters, Lala, Lela, Lili, Lolo, and a language model for most of the cases, by the way, it was fixed ever since, but you will think about this from a linguistic perspective. And then it makes sense that Lulu will be the 5th one. But if you ask a reasoning model that doesn't go specifically through the understanding of a language, but actually has a chain of thought or something that resembles reasoning, you would see that he understands that the 5th child is obviously Kate. So that's a key. This is a small piece of for you to understand what's the difference between a language model and a reasoning model, and why reasoning models actually break the barrier of what we can do. So we don't just have to talk to them as a language would do. We can actually trust them to reason instead of us. And then we're moving from a co-pilot stance to more of an agent autopilot because they can do reasoning as well as we can do. And they're not just an interface for language, they can actually think and have some reasoning as part of it. And I think for a lot of the SaaS companies that we're seeing, that point in time is when we're starting to think about the SaaS model differently. So instead of thinking about software as a service, so we're actually trying to build a software to help a human do his service easier, more productive. And if that software is worth some productivity points or some growth opportunities for the enterprise, then that enterprise will pay licensing cost to access your software. And that was how SaaS was built for years. But if we look at reasoning models, we are probably thinking about switching this, because now we can sell service as a software. We're actually selling agents that can do work in parallel to other humans and maybe take some of those tasks and do them easier or quicker. So instead of just selling access to your software and assuming there's a human on the other side that has to operate it in the best way, we can now think about some of those things will be human focused, and some of them we can just sell as a service or as a non-human service or an agent that can do some of them for you. And think about the productivity gains there, because if up until now we talked about AI and we said, yeah, AI will make us faster and more productive, this is the first time we say AI can own. He can own specific areas. He can do this in his pace, no breaks, no need to eat or sleep or anything, and take some of those. I wouldn't say the top areas of challenge in terms of reasoning, but the basic ones you can actually take as well. So you as a SaaS can think about, okay, I'm going to sell 20 licenses for software as a service for the humans, but I also want to sell 5 agent workers to that same enterprise to take some of the other things that I can do with my IP, but also reason on top of them, so you wouldn't have to have a human that operates them. So that moment in time where SaaS becomes SaaS but only reversed is a very interesting one, and I think it's quite disruptive to how a lot of the service companies are looking themselves today. So if we're looking at GPT-o1, again, that opens up the door for an agent, for something that can actually reason. So we talked about chatbots, we talked about copilots, and now reasoners as a model, but that reasoner as a model can be wrapped, same as a chatbot could be wrapped with context data and access to software to become a copilot. A reasoning model can be wrapped with the same thing to become an agent. And when we're thinking about autonomous agents, and that's a big piece of what we've seen in Ignite, we now have all three of the things. We have the universal interface, so it understands human English very well. It can communicate with everybody across the company, both human and non-humans. It has the memory and context, because that makes it from a model to something that can actually do things, similar to how a chatbot became a co-pilot when you introduce memory and context to him. So now a reasoning model can become an agent once you have memory and context into it. And then the third piece, and this is a new one, he can do reasoning, he can do planning, and he can have the chain of thought understanding that can actually help him, this agent, run as an autonomous agent. So you can sell it as a service for that specific company that always does something. It doesn't have to be engaging or operated by a human, not even in a language perspective. So if co-pilots were more of a front end, which means this is a new front or a new way for you to interact with my IP, is just to ask what you want. We'll take a co-pilot, he understands it, has the context of memory and operate. I would say autonomous agents in o1 is more of a backend, because now we don't even have to engage or wait for an instruction from a human. We can understand the instruction ourselves internally within the agent with a reasoning model, and then operate on that chain of thought, and all the way through reaching a completion of a task. Let's see our reasoning model. So you can see here, I put the language model, I gave it a lot of data in terms of sales. The first thing you will see around reasoning model or no one, it takes time. Okay, so it's not like predicting the next word like a language model. It actually tries to take the time in understanding what was the staffing in this month, what are some of the insights, what are some of the correlations. It's more of a math and reasoning practice right now than just a language one. And you can see what happened here, which it's quite exciting. We saw the product category performance, so that estimation, that analysis was done in a very mathematical, reasoning focused kind of way. What were the patterns in the weekend? What is the discount? What is the staffing impact? And then also ways to increase sales. So he understands specifically what needs to happen and in what volume to make sure that we capitalize on those insights. So it's not a generic understanding, it's very specific. And if we just give it the power to run that reasoning model, the power to run those specific alignments, then now it can be an autonomous model of planning, for example, staffing, because he thinks that he has a good way to optimize staffing. He can optimize marketing. He can optimize the pricing. So there's a lot of specific recommendations here based on the data, which O1 can do. And that's quite an interesting way of thinking about this from a reasoning perspective and not a language perspective. If we take the same example as we've seen previously, so you can see here now the same assistant from Dow now became an agent. So he read the invoice from an email, he read in some Excel content, he retrieved some knowledge, he composed a report, and then he sent it. Nobody had to operate it. So he was responding to some triggers. He did all of the math by himself, and he delivered that specifically to the user or to this email. So if the previous Copilot, you had to operate it, it was still easier. We saw the productive gains, but you had to operate it. You had to provide that chain of thought, and just every step became easier. Now, this agent can actually run autonomously and respond to something that happens, do that thinking by himself, and reach to the same goal. So the productivity gains is amazing. And again, we're talking about a service as a software here because we're selling now an agent that can do invoicing. We're not selling a software that is easier to create invoicing with. So if we're trying to talk about the two trends that we can think about from an agent perspective, one is definitely drive growth through human and non-human collaboration. So as a SaaS, what could be used by humans, what could be used by non-humans, and how could we use the fact that reasoning and model and language models can operate interchangeably to kind of build growth through both of those areas. And then second is how do we improve our operational efficiency? So making sure that we do a lot of those process automation internally and have agents work in our company to make sure that we actually walk the walk. So we're not just offering those agents externally, we can also use them internally to start building some of those autonomous or automation around some key processes. So how do we build this agentic world? We can think about this in a few scenarios, and all of them we discussed at Ignite, from a personal agent to organizational agent to process agent to cross organization, so agents that can run in multiple variations. And all of those could be quite interesting if we try to think about how that agentic world can look like. Now, we at Ignite actually shared the first AI agent automation stack, which is an evolution from our Copilot stack. We obviously have on the side all of the ways for us to build agents, which could be GitHub, Visual Studio, or Copilot Studio. We'll explore all three of them. And then we have the Azure AI Foundry, which is the new area, one-stop shop for everything you want to do that relates to building agents, and obviously the data that is needed to provide to feed that context to the agents for it not just to be a model but to be an agent, and then the infrastructure that is needed to run this, everything across Azure, from running code, from building some specific IP, from making sure that an agent has the access of a human to do everything he wants. That is obviously cloud to edge, and we have trustworthy AI or responsible AI as part of that practice to make sure that an agent will never go sideways. Because now, when we're allowing it to operate autonomously as well, we also need to think about the guardrails. So that is the new AI Foundry and kind of AI automation stack. And let's try and maybe go deeper into all of those three areas. First one, adoption. As I mentioned, before going into extensive and building those agents externally, let's talk about how can we understand that internally as well. A lot of the places where we saw agents were thinking about the return. So we want to build something super specific that would take 100% of the cases and could run them autonomously. So the return will be as high as we can. But specifically, if we're talking about adoption or maybe even internal use cases for us as a company, or maybe the frontline entry level services, the big focus is actually drive investment down. We want to make sure that we have an agent out there, even if it can do small tasks at the beginning, so the return is not very high, but you have that initial footprint. So think about ROI as a basic. We can either take return up or we take investment down. And in this first adoption piece, we're actually trying to take investment down, not being the best, most accurate agent for all of the scenarios, but taking some of the basic entry level, low hanging fruit scenarios that could be driven by very low investment. That could be happening between Copilot Studio, Visual Studio, GitHub. Those are the most loved developer tools. Actually, because we are talking about investment, I wanted to focus on some of the innovations that we've seen across Copilot Studio, because I think this is the easiest investment you can have. This is low code, no code. You can create agents very quickly as you would just talk and just say what you want to do in plain English. So, Copilot Studio, one thing that is a key announcement from Ignite, it's now available from December 1st as the pay-as-you-go on Azure. So you can pay with a standard Azure subscription. It's built through your consumption, and it's really streamlined as part of the tools that you can use now to build agents as part of Azure. So that's one thing. There's no separate tool. You can just use Azure to start building this together. We also built 1,400 pre-built plugins and connectors. So pretty much every Azure service and a lot of the enterprise data platforms that you use are already there. And then you just need to tell the story or educate your agent in the way that he thinks reasoning should happen across all of those tools. So it's quite easy. You don't need to reinvent the tool. Again, thinking investment down. How do I make sure that I have an agent for those low-hanging fruit tasks quite quickly? Because we don't want every investment of AI to be a massive one. So let's look at an example here. We are building an agent. We're calling it, we wanted to do field service agent. We're asking some questions in terms of what would be the data point, and we can easily configure the knowledge, the reference, and we'll see some examples of knowledge as well, and then the actions. Once you're finished, you have that agent here. That agent has context to both what is the triggers, what is the knowledge, and then what is the action that it can take. And that's it. Everything was pre-built in Copilot Studio, zero lines of code. Very easy to use all of those pre-packaged tools and actions to start defining what it can do. You can see some of the examples here, like for example, this is an agent that can plan. This is one of the pre-built agents that we support that can plan in Planner, kind of becoming the project manager. So you can see here he understands a project, he builds those timelines, he drives suggestions, he does some things automatically, some things he kind of concedes with a human project manager to make sure that everything can work together. And that's, again, on the investment side, probably not the core ROI piece of AI agent, but it's a very easy one to introduce and start driving down some of that cost from an operational perspective, automate some things, and think about our company as a company that has both humans and non-humans working together very efficiently to take some of those low-hanging fruit tasks and automate them completely with an agent. There's a lot of them there, from qualifications, communication, time and expenses. You can look at some of the autonomous agents with Copilot Studio. Again, build your own based on what you need. But this is a great example of how we can start pushing through the barriers of agent and understanding the capacity of working with humans and non-humans together internally without having a lot of high investment to build those. You can also see this, for example, here. This is a way for an IT help desk agent. Again, there's the orchestration, there's the knowledge piece, what it knows, there's the action piece, and then there's the triggers. So we can now add a trigger into that, define what is triggering that agent, what is that knowledge that he has to start building some of that reasoning, what are some of the actions that we allow it to operate. As you can see again in Copilot Studio, there's a lot of prepackaged things here. So up until this point, we built some really massive agents without any use of code. You just have to have the knowledge, the action, and the triggers, and a lot of them already part of those pre-built packages on Copilot Studio. So this is an amazing tool, again, part of Azure right now, for you to start exploring or tasting what it means to start creating agents that would support you autonomously in your work. One cool thing here, and you can see it, is that you can also publish your external agents as well. So you can see here we were trying to do this in Dynamics, for example. There's a suggestion to engage. We can put some of the talking points that we want to add if we want as a human. If not, we can just approve and send it, and that's it. So based on that specific knowledge of 68% goal could be done by addressing 20 leads. Again, thinking, as you saw with the reasoning model, very specifically what needs to happen to drive an output, and then helping the human reach it, or even do this autonomously as well. So it doesn't have to be for the small stuff. It can also be agents that you're publishing on the larger pieces. There's just a lot of automation opportunities here, from customer service to steer sales, finance, marketing, HR, legal, IT. You can think about this both internally. How do I make sure that I work better in those areas. Again, we know startups and digital natives, we don't have a lot of people or manpower, in our disposal. We want to run as efficient and as fast as we can. So that could be a good way to start exploring this. But also think about this as your marketplace. So as you just saw in the example with Dynamics, and we already have, you can visit aka.ms, the third-party agents, to think about how to build your SaaS offering and publish them as an agent within Copilot Studio. We already have Workday, ServiceNow, SAP, Cohere, Adobe, and LinkedIn as some of the cool examples. And again, those are not AI companies. So ServiceNow just thought about some agents that they can introduce that can start doing some of those things automatically versus also having the traditional SaaS offering of, hey, go into that website and start doing everything manually by yourself, or using a copilot to help you do some of those things. And then a third option is build an AI agent that for some of those tasks can take the logic away from you, can learn what has to be done, can get the guardrails of the knowledge, the triggers, and then publish it together. So from that adoption perspective, every SaaS company can think about, one, internally, how do I adopt this internally to make sure my company runs in a better operational cadence? And two, what are some of the things that I do, which are low hanging fruit in terms of me being able to publish this as an agent in the marketplace? So similar as you use Azure Marketplace to sell SaaS offering, you can think about the Copilot and agent marketplace, the thing to sell your agents, and they can do similar things. Let's switch gears and talk a little bit about extensibility. Okay, so we've seen the cool low-hanging fruit that we can do either as like small specific agents that you can publish to the agent or things that you can do internally. Everything is very low investment, right? No code up until now. Everything was just pre-packaged and pre-built. When we're talking about extensibility, now we're talking about high return because we want a very tailor-made sort of agent that does specifically what you want, that understands the complexity of a lot of different things. Maybe it could also be a multi-agent. But for this, that also requires more investment. So this is why I didn't think this was the first thing that you have to do when you start running agents. There are easier way to start and taking the low-hanging fruit, but when you're starting to talk about your core IP, then you need to go in and actually build those agents. And this is a little more complicated than building an assistant because it has to have more confidence to act autonomously. And we see the complexity is increasing. So 93% of use cases are now using 3 and plus model providers. So reasoning, language, different places, different alignments, different industries. And also a key scenario here is 80% of early AI projects fail to meet expectations due to that complexity. So we're pushing the boundaries in where we want to get to in the return because we want to be very detailed, precise, and autonomous, but that also drives some complexity. Fortunately, that complexity is driven down by Azure AI Foundry. I mentioned it briefly earlier. Again, Copilot Studio and AI Foundry working quite nicely together. There's the model catalog that allows you to build or to pick the right model from foundational model, open source, task models, and industry models. And then there's some pieces there from the Azure OpenAI service to the Azure AI Search, which allows you to bring some of that context. Azure AI Agent Service, which is a new announcement we'll share in a second, and then some of the responsible AI, which has content safety, governance, monitor, evaluation, observability, and trustworthy AI as well. So if you look at this, Foundry is a huge platform that allows you to build agents. That's the whole understanding of what we want to try to do this, from choosing the right model, accessing the right data, providing a lot of the governance, both from a monitor observability perspective as well as trustworthy AI, and then also have the right framework for building those AI agents. Everything, as we mentioned, is connected to either Copilot Studio, Visual Studio, GitHub, or the Foundry AI, Azure AI Foundry SDK, and they're interchangeable. You can start with Copilot and then take the data from a knowledge that was actually shared to Azure AI Search. So everything is part of the Azure stack. Let's talk about the model breadth. As we mentioned, there's a lot of models right now on Azure AI. So it's been 2 years and a long way since we just had one model to choose from. There's a lot of different scenarios, more than 1,800 models. We've actually in Ignite introduced 20 new industry specific models. So you can now actually run some things that could be really specific to your industry. One of the key asks is actually how do you compare between them? So let's see that cool example here. You can see there's the same store data from the demo that I shared with the reasoning model. And what we're going to do now is we're actually have this run both on GPT-4o and GPT-o1 to start evaluating and exploring some of those differences between models. Because when you have so many models, the model catalog is a great way to also assess or evaluate some of when anything can work in the same way. So I pasted the same thing, and you can see here the examples. By the way, this is a good reminder to the difference between a reasoning model and a language model. So you can see here the responses for GPT-4o, a great model, no less, but you can see that everything he gives us is very linguistic. So the category, everything is not based on number of reasoning. The recommendations a little bit high level-ish, right? We know that there's some weekend sales, so it does a nice job, but definitely not something I would let run autonomously. It's a really co-pilot experience. It helps me learn what I have to do as a human to maybe start building, more promotions or doing some midweek and things like that. And even when you have a recommendation, it's quite generic. Now, if we look at o1, and again, part of the cool thing about being able to evaluate between models on the model catalog is now you can see specifics. This specific on August 3rd, there was 2,000 customers, and then 450 on August 1st. You can see the domination is specific on numbers. Everything here is based on reasoning. So it's not just general guidelines, it's specific to that specific scenario. And obviously, if we look at the ways to increase sales, you will see some more specific things around optimization or in specifically what are the hours that it can do or help on flexible scheduling. So obviously between both of those models in this specific scenario, if I want to build an agent, I would trust o1 much more. So that's a cool way for you to start thinking about models and models as a service and the model catalog. Let's talk about a new announcement as well, the Azure AI agent service. It's a very cool service, again, built for building AI agents. You can see here the examples. For example, I'm coming into Foundry, I'm building my own agent. I want to have, in this case, build an agent that does scheduling. It has the connected resources here, so I can go and ask a question. And if I need additional resources, I'm trying to look at that agent playground, then you have here on the setup side, and let's scroll down quickly, you have here what is actually based on. For now, I'm going to use GPT-4o because it's a very basic kind of agent. You have the instructions. We want to have him look at my Outlook, look at Bing search, look at other places, make sure that we're building the right scheduling, which just doesn't have a conflict with anything else. Something I personally had a lot of times, specifically working on the EMEA time zone. I always miss some important days on specific places. So having that schedule that says for this specific area, you can't do this would be very good. And then if I'm trying to look at a specific high school, break, then I have to have knowledge. You can see here knowledge can come from Azure AI Search, as I mentioned, providing a graph, Bing, Fabric, SharePoint, and other third party like TripAdvisor. In this place, we're just going to connect it to Bing. So we tapped on the knowledge part. Now, the second part that we want to tap into is on the action part. So you can see it in here after we got a response from Bing. Now we can add action. That could be code interpreters, so actually running code. There can be custom functions. It can also be logic apps. This is what I really like. So you can go back to low code in this scenario and start evaluating or start doing some of those actions in low code. And obviously everything on Azure, so for like Azure functions as well. So there's a lot of ways for your agent to also go and do things. In this case, I wanted to go back to logic apps. This is showing you the continuous back and forth between low code and code. And here we can create an event, decide specifically. It's quite visual because it's a low code. Logic apps is our low code kind of event tracking and workflow management. And you can have here a new action and decided within this action he has to do something around an SAP mechanism or something like that. So when you're building an agent, there's a one-stop shop. There's a way for you to ground it with a lot of different data sources from Azure AI to Fabric to SharePoint to third party. There's a lot of different actions you can bring from low code to functions to code interpreter and other places. And all of this is wrapped with one agent that can, after you publish it, do a lot of different things. In this case, this is just one agent doing one thing, but we will talk about scenarios where you'll have multiple agents doing multiple things. And as you go up in the chain, there will be more reasoning that has to happen. Last thing I want to talk is around the ROI. So it's a very cool and something I definitely waited for a long time. Uh, we heard a lot with agents, but also with copilots that we are trying to assess what this actually drives to our customers. Specifically as SaaS companies, we want to sell those agents. We want to sell those new copilot enhanced scenarios. We want to make sure that we're also not just taking more pricing because AI is not a cheap thing. We also want to make sure that we're providing the right response. So Copilot and that analytics allows us to actually look at what happens when you're using either those agents or specifically using those copilots. So here you can see deals won. If someone was inactive, then there's this amount, and there was someone was highly using agents or copilots, you see much more of those specifically. Let's take the financial advisor agent that we built that can give some recommendation or even do some things autonomously if you allow it, and respond to triggers. So you can see here, I can see the topics by outcome, what was resolved, what was abandoned, what was escalated, why, where are some of the places that that agent really delivered, either in money, in time spent, and things like that. And you can see it here. When did it go into the knowledge source and what kind of knowledge source did it get? What was the user feedback that we got? So kind of have an agent overlooking the agent capabilities in the Copilot to make sure we can have not an AI discussion like we did in the past 2 years, which is AI is cool, you should use it, but a very specific ROI discussion. Look, if you're not buying into that AI, then you can see that the deals won, the resolution, everything is here. And if you are starting to involve autonomous agents or copilots, that we have metrics now that can show you that things are different, that you see more resolution, more money, more performance apart, anything related to your specific agent. In this case, it's a financial advisor agent, could be any agent that you want. That's a very interesting way for us to start thinking about this together. So if I'm wrapping everything together, we now use both the Copilot Studio and Azure to start creating a world of agents. Some of them are low investment, medium return agents, which are more the low hanging fruit. Some of them are higher investment, but also very detailed and great ROI on the side because they're very autonomous and they can do specific things that are very common across the enterprise that you're selling to. And then you have the AI analytics on the bottom that always has that discussion of saying, we're building AI into the product not because AI is cool. We're building it because we now have specific metrics on what that does to your business that we managed to introduce as part of our SaaS offering Copilot or agents that are actually doing things autonomously and working with your employees as part of our SaaS offering. So having the ability to measure all of this is quite interesting as well. I know we started off with AGI, so I just want to finish with AGI as well. So obviously we're now at agents, which is cool, but again, we're still not at an AGI. So it was a massive step, but let's look at the future. So once we look at reasoners, we now can think about innovators, which means they're not just responding to triggers, they can start innovating on things by themselves. And up until now, even agents need to respond to something and need some practice to reason around. When we start to get to the next level of AGI, they will start hypothesizing by themselves, and that would be quite cool. And then once you have all of that together, then you will have organizations, which means they can operate a lot of different autonomous agents. They can innovate. They can think about what needs to happen. They can run a slew of, a lot of multiple agents, co-pilots, and everything autonomously. So that's a higher bar of instead of just automating some specific tasks as we've seen now, or innovating in some areas. It's about playing or orchestrating something as an organization would do. Um, and then we can also think about the human and non-human in a way that is also touching the physical world. So I wanted to give you and finish off with that. One cool example, a company that both Microsoft and OpenAI is invested in, a humanoid robot that is powered by OpenAI. It's called Figure One. You can see here the example. This is an agent that has become or is quickly becoming an innovator that is also operating on the real world. So up until now, we talked about agents being only autonomous but running in parallel to a human in the digital world. We can actually start thinking about this in the physical world as well. You can see here an example on the BMW factory training. I like that example because it really provides what an agent can do once we feel comfortable enough to bring it outside of the digital world into the physical world. And again, same practices. You can see it in here. It's been trained, it has the right reasoning, it understands how to operate autonomously. So similar practice to what we talked about agents, only happening in the real world. And think about what that would do to the world once we start thinking about agents, not just an AI agents running on digital sphere, but also as physical. So again, very cool startup, Figure One. Check it out. Microsoft and OpenAI obviously checked it out because of the investment that we've done. And there's a lot of cool ones out there as well. Just make sure that they're actually working on AI and not being operated by someone on the backstage. Great. So it's been a packed one, for sure. And a lot of people are still asking, when is this all coming to an end? Where are we on the AGI side? I just finished learning copilots now. It was a bit of a 45 minutes just talking about agents and blew my mind again. So I don't know, but I can give you the estimation of Sam Altman, 5 years, give or take, maybe slightly longer, when until we reach AGI, and that could really unlock a lot of the things that we've seen. So I would say that this is a lot of opportunity for disruption and continuous disruption as we see in the market, but also a lot of opportunity to seize or to understand new business models and strategies. Thinking about agent, thinking about autonomous, thinking about services as software is in parallel to services as software as a service. There's a lot of things that we can adapt. You will still need to adapt quickly, so that there's no change in this, but definitely it's an opportunity for all of us to start looking at the world differently and make sure that we as startups and digital natives continue to disrupt at least until we get into this point of AGI. Good. I want to thank you for keeping up with me. It was I know it's been a bit of a long one. We're gonna do some deep dive into some of those agent capabilities right now with the lovely folks from To Be Cloud. I'm still here on the chat to get any of your questions, and let me just remind you, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love to do those sessions when they're interactive, and I kind of felt like we could do in a webinar. It's a little not the best way to do interaction. So please reach out to me. Let's think about how can we work together on this side from the EMEA the Digital Natives unit. And with that, thank you so much, and over to the next one.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Adir, for your insights and sharing with us all the latest announcements and must-knows about data and AI from Ignite. It was really insightful, and I'm sure all of us can't wait to start and see this true value in our Azure day-to-day. So, hi everyone, I'm Ilanit. I'm the VP Marketing for To Be Cloud. Joining me today is one of our amazing cloud solution architect, Evgeny Golovashev. And we heard a lot about data and AI, and you can't really sneeze without saying AI today. And everyone wants to do AI and implement it in their product and see value. But how to really start and how to make sure you're successful at it. So, what we want to do with you guys today in the next 20 to 30 minutes is to show you from our best practices of working with our customers a step by step how to run a successful Azure AI search POC. So before we start, quickly about us. To be Cloud, we are an Azure Expert MSP. We work with digital native startups and ISVs companies worldwide. We serve over 400 customers. We provide unlimited consultation, engineer to engineer support, and cost optimization, and all with a 10 minutes SLA and with 98% customer satisfaction rate. So, Evgeny, POC, customers really want to start working with Azure AI Search. But in your best experience, we having this discussion on a daily basis with our customers. What will be the best use cases to really see value from in Azure AI Search?
Good afternoon, Vanit. I should tell you that most use cases that I saw about AI search and about AI, it's search some data inside the internal database. And customers make a POC with the main four streams. First streams, customers should organize a enterprise search inside the POC. What it mean? For example, customer has a lot of unstructured documents, and customers should recognize these documents and put this information to some internal database. And after this, um, ask model about simply about in the native language to search some data. Also, this cover for knowledge mining inside the big libraries of data and find the answers to the question in the natural language. Also, we have a way for document intelligence to create the index of the data. For example, data should be contracts in the legal area, some invoices in the finance area, sales orders, and another type of internal documents. And what's the main goal of the business? To find the relevant documents inside the database and to find the answer for the question inside this document. And the last thing, it's a very important thing, in the POC way, it's a catalog search. Inside the catalog search, it's a interesting feature for e-commerce, for customer-facing web application, for some mobile apps, and this mechanism should prevent zero search result and should give, for example, to the end customer some examples of products from the catalog. For example, end customer have a way to ask what the better proposal in the market for today. If I go to the if I go, for example, to the market, yeah. And after this mechanism should found some information about products inside the catalog and found the right dresses for the vendor. Yeah.
Thank you. So going a little bit deeper, what will be the main components of a successful POC?
Main components for our successful POC and from my practice, it should be fast to market. And the first main component should be Azure AI search. This first one. It's a main core of the POC. And we should use all insights from the Azure OpenAI models. We should use a variety of data sets, and also we should deploy some web application to manage front end for the end users. What do you
Okay.
think?
Sounds great. What will you say from your experience can make this POC successful? Like what? How can they measure it?
I think the better to understand the main KPI of POC. And to understand the main KPI of POC, we should understand the main top. We should found the top 10 questions, for example, that we should ask from the AI search, and what information we should search. For example, you should find the top 10 questions, and after this, you should write the top 10 answers for this question. And what is your expectation about answer? This is your KPI.
Great. Thank you.
What the main components should be inside the POC? First one, it's some front-end application. Second one, it should be some orchestrator between your front-end application and AI search and Azure OpenAI. And the main part of this story, it's your data sets. Data sets should be inside for example, Azure SQL database. You have a way to use MongoDB, and the most simple case is to use to copy files inside the storage account and create index from the files on the for the storage account, and after this deploy the application with orchestrator and receive the powerful search. In this case, I should tell that it's very important to do the fast POC. In my opinion, the POC should be in the 3 days. Yeah. Because if you are doing POC for 1 month, for 2 months, for half years, you should receive the result and you should understand how this engine works. And the uh, main opportunity of the POC to receive the knowledge how to work with OpenAI and how to receive the basics and the knowledge how to work with OpenAI and how to work with Azure components to build this POC. I think the first day it should be your team should understand how to create Azure AI search, how to create index, how to do the vector index, and how to work with OpenAI Studio. This is his first day. In the second day, team should go more deeply and understand how to build index with the large file, how to create search with the data sets. If data sets, it's a tabular data sets file. How to connect to SQL databases, how to send requests to SQL databases, how to adopt requests to SQL databases, and how to work with prompts. And to create a simple chat in the end of the day 2. And in the day 3, team should understand how to talk with the REST API. For example, if you need to found the data on the third-party partners, or on the open API. You should understand how to use a LAMP chain, for example, and how to send the request, how to orchestrate this data between the different requests. And that also should be the challenge to create some chatbot and implement this chatbot, for example, to your front-end application and additional to your Office 365 application, for example, to the team. And in the end, a team should understand how to build what is the uh, growing architecture and how to build backend and front-end application. What should be in the backend, what should be in the front-end, and create a simple UX design to front-end application.
Thank you. Thank you for this walkthrough. So before we dive really into seeing this in action, for someone who's not very technical like myself, how intuitive the AI search interface really is.
I think it's very simple. It's very simple to use to any user who know how to work in the basic with the Azure platform. And also we have a AI Studio, and here inside the studio you have a lot of components to build your application to play with your data, to play with the prompts without any knowledge about the programming language, about the framework, and about the deep understanding how it's work. It's something for the first day. For example, in the first day, you have a way to build POC with your business user, with your business together. You will go to your business, you will go to your product team, for example, and after this, together with your product team, you should build a small POC, play with data, understand what data should be put to storage account, how to adopt prompt, and the main I will return back creates the main KPI of POC, generates the questions, generates the answers, and generates the expectations about answers for this question.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe let's start the POC.
Let's start. Let's start. Okay, it's very simple. It's very simple. It's real simple. For the first one, we should create together, for example, instance of OpenAI. In this case, I have a resource group. This resource group for now contains a lot of my resources for POC, but I will create from scratch. I'm going to the search resources, and in the search resources, I should write open Azure OpenAI. I will create a new resource. I should select a resource group, POC, for example. I should select the region, name of the instance, and pricing tier. Oh, something happened. This, yeah, this name already is in use. Okay, this should be 00001. Let's try. Okay, it's work. After this, I'm going to click next. Mm, We should, for the first one, if this not contain some, for example, compliance data, I will select all requests, all network. But in the future state, if you're going to production, I would recommend to you to use a virtual networking connection with service principal, with private endpoints. But this is another story because for today we are doing a POC with the product team without deep knowledge about OpenAI platform and about OpenAI and AI search inside the Azure platform. Okay, I should put a tags and no, I think the best practice to skip the question about tags, I will put the owner and owner my name, for example, and deploy the result. Let's see. Okay, we deployed cognitive services OpenAI. And after this, I should go to main screen of OpenAI and select Explore in Azure AI Studio. It's a new feature and I like this feature. And what we see, we should go to deployments. And inside the deployments, we should deploy the base model. We should select the model. Model should be GPT-4o, for example. I should confirm. In my case, I will use a global deployments, but we have options to use a standard or new features of batch deployments. But let's use a global deployment. And after this, we should increase numbers of tokens per minute. I will increase for 2000 tokens per minute, and it's a maximum, for example, 200 requests per minute. It's mean that you have a way to 200 times ask your model per minute for any questions or about or you have a limitation for tokens per minute. Okay. And I will deploy this model. After this, okay, model deployed. It's fast. Okay. And after this, we have a playground. And we have a way to test this model inside the playground, for example. I will go to chat. And this is my model. And write, for example, hello, can you assist? I assist you today. Oh, it's nice. It's work. Okay. And in the left side, we have parameters about your questions, about your max response, about your temperature, about top P, about stop sequence, frequency penalty, and another options. But the main, this one, it's a play with prompt. And we have a new feature we have a new feature to generate a prompt, for example, for your model. We should adopt model for your questions, and model understand what is the main goal. And in this case, we should generate the prompt. And we also have a way to generate the prompt with some AI mechanism. Okay. Describe what you want the model to do. Okay. I will enter some data. We try together to build, for example, solution for searching information regarding ISO 27001. Because before this demonstration, I download a couple of examples about ISO standards to my computer. Okay, let's send. Okay, it's a prompt adoption. Okay, and the next step, we should add a data source. Yeah. What should be the data source? Data source should be directly to AI search inside the AI, but in this case, we should manually create an index and connect the sources for AI search. Yeah. Second case, it should be simple Azure Blob Storage. And after this, we have a way to connect to CosmoDB, and we have a way to use a direct URL with web address or directly upload file. I will use story with the blob storage. Okay, I should select blob storage. For example, I have a pre-installed blob storage. I should select a storage container. Yeah, storage container should be this ISO 27001, and I will show you this storage. Yeah. This is my resource group. Inside resource group, we have a storage account. This is storage account. And inside the storage account, I have containers. And I have a container with some PDF file, for example. And I will download this PDF file and show you. It's some information on PDF about ISO 27001, international standards, and these documents contain some controls and information about these controls and some annexes. Yeah, and let's try to work with it, with this document. And after this, we should create a new AI search resource. Okay, let's create together. We should select resource group. Also, we should select a region. We should select the service name, AI. After this, we should understand the scaling options in this case, but in my case, it should be the minimum. And for this, for POC, you have a way to use, I think it should work with the basic, but to connect to research from OpenAI, we need a minimum basic tier. I will select a basic tier and its scale. I will also, we have endpoints. We have a way to create a private endpoint for AI search, thinking about this, about future state after POC, because we need to create some environment with security policy. Next, each owner. It's very important to put the text, because if you have a lot of DevOps or another person that use Azure environment, you have a way to create some key of the text and use the value, different value for each, for example, of, for example, in the end, to understand the cost for this solution through the text deployment. Okay, let's wait. I think it should be very fast. Okay, I told it's a fast deployment. Okay, let's go to resource. We have indexes. What are inside the indexes? Nothing. Okay, we didn't have any index. We have a storage account. We have a file, and I will return back to. I select Azure Search Resource. After this, I should put a name of the index. ISO 27001. Index scheduler should be once, but because it's storage account, but we have a way to create some additional architecture mechanism to receive, for example, receive the input from the storage account through the event grid, and after this run indexer. But it's another story, and we have, I will click next. Okay, it's a chunk size. It should be default chunk size with the key search type, yeah, keyword. I will show you additional if you need to use a vector search. You have a way to use a vector search, but in this case, I will skip this one because we need to create embeddings. It's additional steps, but you have a way to create embeddings through the, for example, through the AI Studio, and after this, return to this interface, back to this interface. Okay, I will use API key, not a system assignment managed identity, and I will click next. Okay, save and close. For now, it's creating for the index. Let's wait. Okay, index created. Let's check together. Let's wait a couple, for example, some time. And I should go to indexes. This is indexer. Yeah. And I should go to index. Let's wait for the system. Okay, we have an index in this case. And let's check what we have with, for example, let's try to search something with this control. Yeah. Okay, we have an index. We have a fields for index, yeah. And also we have a way to create a demo application from this one. And I will return back. Okay, and let's ask the model, for example, for simple questions.
Thank you.
Find information about control, this one. Okay, and let's try. Okay, we found some information about this control inside the file. We generate the answer in the native language about this control, and we have a link for this file. It's a playground. It's a playground to test data, to adopt prompt, to understand how many token you need for each request. For example, we sent 400. We sent for now 460 tokens. Also, we should organize prompt to minimize numbers of tokens. But it's another story. It's a story for day two. In the day one, in my opinion, we should understand together with the product team how to work with OpenAI, what data should be delivered to storage account, what's the main question, and what's the expectations about questions. And also, we have a very fast mechanism to deploy the application. If I click to web application, for example, for deploy, we have a way to create a new application. For example, POC 33001, because it should be unique domain name. And after this, we should select the subscription. And after this, we should select the location. My model in the Sweden, yeah, Sweden Central. And we should select the pricing plan about a web application, should be, for example, standard. And after this application will be deployed to your environment, and you will see a simple front-end application with the same dialog inside with your playground. Thank you.
Well, I hope you all enjoy this, and you can all now go and start working on your POCs. But if you do feel like you need our help and you want to talk with us, and you want us to make sure and help you that this POC will be very successful, so you can feel free to scan this QR code and leave us a note, and our experts will be in touch with you and we'll work hand in hand with you. Thank you very much. Thank you again, everyone, and see you at the next webinar.